Welcome back to the newest episode of Swim Guys. I am your co-host, Jason Hughes, and
Rory Walker.
I almost said Rory McDonald. UFC fighter or MMA fighter. So today's episode is with Australian breaststroker Taylor McKeown. Rory, I just want to take a minute here before you get into your thoughts on the show. Taylor was not the first episode that we recorded, but this is the first episode that we're releasing, and I have to say it. She's one of my favorites. This was one of my favorite episodes. She was the first Australian to say yes to an interview without knowing who we were, without knowing what we were doing. She was so generous with her time. And really a great speaker. This was a really enjoyable interview for us, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. Taylor is a Commonwealth Games champion in the 200-meter breaststroke. She's an Olympic finalist in the 200-meter breaststroke, an Olympic silver medalist in the medley relay at the most recent Rio Olympics. And she was so close to a medal in the 200 breaststroke. Her semifinal time, I think, would have got her a silver or bronze in the final. Yeah. So of course I think there's going to be great things coming up from her this year, probably with the Pan Pacific Championships coming in. But this was just one of my favorites because the first couple episodes we recorded were with people that we knew. It was with personal relationships, and they were really easy conversations. This one I was a little bit nervous about because we didn't know her. We'd never spoken to her. We were calling 14 hours difference in the time zones, and she could not have been more gracious.
No, and that's what I would say. What I remember about Taylor, she was so down to earth and so pleasant to talk to. I love how we got into things like the ready room, before her races.
I forgot about that.
She was fantastic. I mean, here we are, when you watch the Olympics, you think there's this huge, gigantic room, where the swimmers come out of, where the curtains are. And then you find out it's actually like this little closet. But she talked a lot about her experiences at the Olympics. The other thing I really like about Taylor is the wonderful family life that she has. She comes obviously from a great background. Her sister's a swimmer, but her parents have had such a positive impact on her, and it really came through in this. And I have to say, if they're listening, you've done a wonderful job with your daughter. She is an absolute pleasure, and I couldn't be happier to have her as our very first episode for you to listen to. So please enjoy.
And actually, I'm not going to go into the episode yet. I totally forgot. And she's so humble, actually. Like you think that a professional athlete isn't going, they're going to be, I don't want to say cocky, but confident, which she's definitely confident. But she was so humble that she didn't even take the time to promote her current project. So I'm going to do it for her right here. Perfect. So I really wish that she had told us that she was going to be starting this. Taylor has recently started the Achievers Swim Academy. So we're gonna put links to her swim academy and her Instagram in our show notes. So if you're on your mobile or on your wherever you are, just go to our site swimguys.com. Look for the show notes for Taylor McKeown's episode, and you'll find links to her swim academy, which I can't believe she didn't take the time to talk about it, but I'm following,
We're going to get her back, though. She did agree to come back.
That's true.
To do like
a follow-up after the Pan
a swim down show. Yeah.
So her clinics, even though she obviously doesn't need us to promote it, they're all selling out.
Of course.
So she's selling out all her clinics, but you can also go to the achieversswimacademy.com.au, and we will link that to the show, as well as the Instagram for the show and her own Instagram. So if you're more interested in learning more about Taylor or reaching out to her for her Achievers Swim Academy, please visit swimguys.com and you'll be able to click right through to her swim academy. I think you'll really like it. But for now, on to the show.
And here's Taylor McKeown.
So you gave us a little bit of credibility, so thank you.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. No problem. I think a similar thing happened with another group who were doing just like online interviews though, and I replied straight away and I was like, yeah, I'm fine to talk about that. And then once I did, they got like Kyle Chalmers and Brent Elmsley and a few other people to join in as well. So it kind of just snowballs on.
Yeah.
You're a lucky charm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So how are those eggs looking? Are you okay to talk now, or do you need a couple more minutes?
Yeah, I'm fine to talk now. I'll just put you back. There you go. No, you're not on speaker.
Oh, that's much better. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. So, are you? Have you already had your practice for today?
Yeah, I just got home. So this morning we had swim and then gym, and then we were done. But it was a huge session this morning. For us, it was like 7 kilometers and
seven
some
kilometers.
400 medleys.
And you got another one. You got another one coming up tonight.
No, Friday afternoon's off.
Oh,
how good is that?
Yeah,
we love it.
Sounds good. Does your sister swim with you as well?
Yeah, she does. So she moved over about 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Long story behind that, but yeah, we train together now.
Yeah, and how did you guys get along well?
We do. Sometimes we bicker in the lane a little bit because Kaylee and I actually share a lane in training. But as fun as it is, sometimes when we're both just really hurting in the middle of a main set and, you're being pushed to the limit both physically and emotionally, and then Kaylee makes a smart remark to me or something and I snap at her and then she'll snap back and then all of a sudden it's on like World War III.
So and, who gets to lead the lane?
Yeah. Sorry?
Who gets to lead the lane?
It's actually funny because we all take turns.
Yeah.
So there's 4 of us in the lane and we actually keep tabs on who leads what, just as like a little bit of banter as well.
Yeah.
So if anyone's been slacking off during the week, we've got tabs on who's been leading what and who's been setting the pace for the lane. So yeah, we'll share the responsibility.
When I never got to the same level that you're at, but when I was swimming, I always wanted to lead. I always felt it kind of like I always wanted to set the pace, and I always, even though you're a team, I kind of took a little bit of pleasure in breaking people if I could. But,
yeah, that's so funny. I get the same feeling.
Yeah.
Like this morning, we had part of our main session was 300-400 IMs descending, and so you start off a bit easy, and the last one's pretty much a maximum effort. And I cruised the first one, and the other 2 girls I were with went a bit faster than me, and then for the second one I was with them, and on the third one I had the fastest time. So
that's always nice.
I didn't try and stay with them in the first one, and I was able to beat them when it counted. So it's just like, yeah, it's just like fun things like that really makes me enjoy training.
Yeah, it's good. And how big is the group that you train with right now?
I think there's 12 of us. There's definitely always 10, but we do have a few international athletes that come and go. So just last week we had 2 girls from England training with us, and at the moment we've got a girl from the Czech Republic who leaves next week to start her preparation for European championships. And then I think next month we're getting another swimmer from Argentina.
Oh, wow.
So we've always got new people popping in and out all the time, so it keeps the group refreshed.
Yeah. Who are some of the people that you've that have joined you that kind of surprised you with maybe their work ethic or their personality?
I guess we had Azad Al-Bazari from Syria, who actually trains at USC in America. He came over last year. Oh, sorry, maybe it was 2016. I think he was here between 16 and 17. And at first impressions, he's such a giant person, but he was so funny. He brought such a great vibe to the group, and you rocked up to training every day, and you were excited to see Azad and see what stories he was going to tell from the day and that kind of thing. And then he always finished the session and was always hurting, so it was funny to see him hurt that bad, but at the same time it's good to see him putting in that effort, and I think it kind of made everyone lift as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, just walking in and seeing a big smiling face, and he was always happy to see everybody. It really made training enjoyable, and I think anyone who comes under our USC guidelines of like accountability, respect, as long as you can bring something good to the group, we're going to welcome you with open arms. And we also had Eric Persson from Sweden come and train with us. He's like a 207 200 breaststroker now, so it was awesome for me to train alongside him and kind of pace off him and learn new drills that I still use today. So I love having breaststrokers come train with us, but anyone else as well is always a benefit.
Taylor, what's your favorite breaststroke drill?
I do a breaststroke drill. Like, I really struggle with breaststroke pull. If you look at me swim, it's like 80% of my stroke is leg dominated. And so I do a breaststroke pull drill where I'll do 3 sculls and then go into like a full breaststroke stroke. But because I'm getting very little momentum going into the breaststroke stroke, I have to pull quite hard at the top of my stroke. So that really gets me working, I guess, the first phase of my breaststroke pull. And then, of course, the kick just follows through. So, yeah, it's probably my favorite one. It's challenging as well. For me, it is anyway.
It's interesting that you say that you're mostly leg-based. I was watching your Olympic races last night. I was trying to, just refresh my memory on some of the races. And you really do have such a long stroke compared to, like, the girls that were on either side of you in that race. But I mean, your time, especially in the semifinals when you were 2:21, have you had to change anything about your stroke in the last couple of years, or is it just kind of refining it still?
So I think 2016 at Australian trials was when I did my personal best time, and that was a 2:21.4.
Yeah, amazing.
Prior to that, I was around a 2:23. So coming into Olympics, I knew I had to drop quite a bit to hit the qualifying time. Sorry, prior to that, my PB was a 22.1. So coming into Olympics, I knew I had to be, really on point if I wanted to be making finals and be around that 22 mark. So I was stoked when I got through the heat swim. I was third into the semi-final, and I was just so relaxed in that semi-final. I was really happy to be there, and I knew that the pressure wasn't going to be on until the following night. And I think that's why I performed so strongly in my semi-final, and I really put my head down. And I just remember coming into the last 50 of the semi and looking on my turn and seeing how far ahead I was of the field, and I thought, oh, well, I can back off a little bit here. So I kind of really extended my stroke in that last 50 and cruised into the wall, and guess I kind of did what I needed to do to make the final. And I was super surprised that I still managed to go a 21, even though I had backed off in the last 50, and that made me really, really excited for the final, because I was like, oh, I've got the potential to PB here, and, there's Olympic medals up for grabs.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I just remember coming into the final, I rocked up to the pool and I was extremely nervous. And I started doing extra things in my warm-up that I wouldn't normally do. And my coach was saying to me after the race that he knew I was nervous because he could see how jittery I was. And, I was wanting to do extra pace and warm-up to make sure that my stroke was feeling good. Whereas normally I would just warm up and the pace is what it is and the time is what it is. And I go off and I go to marshalling and race. Because my coach has always said, you don't have to feel great in warm-up to feel great in the race.
Yeah.
And I kind of neglected that in my Olympic final. I just wanted everything to be so perfect. And anyway, I went to marshalling and I was about 5 minutes earlier ahead of any of my other competitors.
Is that normal? Is that part of your normal routine? No.
It's never usually the case either. I'm kind of midway through people arriving. So I knew I was nervous from that point. And I remember just lining up before we walked out for the final, I had Yulia Efimova ahead of me, and it really got my nerves going when I heard the crowd boo her.
I wanted to ask you about that.
As she walked out. Yeah, because, of what her history is, kind of frowned upon in Australia and I guess America and Canada as well. I think most of the world pretty much disagrees with it, and that really showed at Olympics when she walked out and they booed her, and that made me really nervous. And I knew in lane 4 I was walking out last. I kind of walked out and already had my jacket unzipped, and I kind of rushed through my pre-race routine a little bit, and rather than taking my time and just making them wait for me. And from then I just remember getting on the blocks and having so much adrenaline in my system that I just absolutely took out that first 100
yeah.
and kind of faded a little bit in my second 100 looking back. And I just remember in my last 50 seeing the girls either side of me catching up and slowly going past, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be a bad race. But, I finished 5th, and I thought that was an awesome achievement looking back at it now for my first Olympics. And I kind of had a few days rest before I had to get up again and go on the relay, which we finished with a silver medal. So it really topped off my Olympics, having individual swims as well as coming home with a relay medal. It was awesome.
Yeah, congratulations, Taylor, on the silver medal.
Yeah, thank you.
And you know what? It's this is a good experience, right? You put it in the bank and you'll be ready for the next round.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And after a bad race, I like to look at the things I could have done better or what went wrong. But we never spend too long dwelling on it, me and my coach. And I guess the only time it's brought up again as if I'm having a really hard session, and he says something like, "Do you want to swim like you did at Worlds in 2017?" And I reply, and I'm like, "No, I don't want to." And he's like, "Well, push harder." So it's kind of like a motivator at the same time, because you never want to swim bad. I guess everyone wants to swim good all the time. Sometimes you just can't. But yeah, he uses it as motivation, and I've had a little taste of the Olympics now, and I absolutely loved it. The whole thing, I guess, being in the village with everyone else, the atmosphere, getting up and racing and seeing world records get broken and seeing people win Olympic medals. It's an amazing feeling to be there and to witness it, and to actually be in it yourself is just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that.
You know, you feel lifted. The support of your country physically lifts you when you're racing. And I remember looking into the crowd and seeing my family dressed up in green and gold and waving their Australian flags around, and it just makes you happy to be there. Genuinely happy to be there, knowing that you've got everyone's eyes on you. They're all just supporting you. So hence the reason I'm still swimming. I definitely want to try and make Tokyo in 2 years' time, because I feel like I'm going to be in my prime come Tokyo, and I really look forward to going to another Olympics, fingers crossed.
Yeah, so the plan is to go on then, of course.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I'm only 23. I turned 23 in March this year, so I feel like I've still got a few years in me.
Oh,
yeah,
totally.
for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, when Rory and I came up with the show, we agreed that we were going to avoid anything political. So I'm going to apologize to Rory. I just want to go back to the Ready Room for a minute, just because you brought Efimova up.
Yeah.
You don't. I'm not asking for your opinion. We're not looking for anything salacious. I'm just curious what the environment in the Ready Room was like. We were speaking to an American swimmer, or former swimmer, Carolyn Joyce, and she wrote an article about how there's no friends in the Ready Room. And and I'm just curious what the environment was like in that Ready Room compared to other Ready Rooms that you've been in, like say the Commonwealth Games in 2014, and knowing knowing that a lot of the Russian athletes were getting booed. Did it seemed to affect everybody, because there was a few people that had swam a little bit slower in the finals as well.
Yeah. Well, I would say the marshalling room for the women's 200 meter breaststroke, you could cut the tension with a knife. Yeah. Everyone could feel it, and I was doing my best. I'm quite chatty in marshalling. I like to keep things fairly lighthearted and then focus when I need to just before I walk out. So I was chatting with Molly Renshaw, one of the girls from Great Britain, who was in that race as well. And Efimova was, kind of doing her own thing. But it was definitely tense, because nobody wants to let a convicted drug offending swimmer win. So everyone was in it for, trying to do the right thing. But I think the most tense marshalling room I've ever been in was at World Championships in Budapest last year, when I was in the marshalling room with both Lily King and Efimova.
Yeah, that wow.
Oh,
did anybody have to get between them?
So Efimova was sitting a row behind Lily, and Efimova was facing the front, sitting down. Lily spent the entire time with her leg up on the chair, facing her entire body open towards Efimova.
Wow.
And I remember looking at the two, and I thought, there's going to be a fight in a minute. Like, something's going to happen. I'm just sitting there, like, quietly doing my own thing, watching what's going on.
Yeah. I
just thought it was great, and obviously it works for Lily. I mean, it really pumps her up, and you can see when she walks out behind the blocks as well, she takes one last look at Efimova before she dives in. So, good for Lily. That's awesome. It really works for her, and, it keeps things a bit exciting as well.
I have a feeling that Lily can't compete at her best unless she's just her true self, whether it's even in public. Exactly. Like there's nothing corporate about what she says. It's just she just has to have that outlet to let whatever's on her mind out, or she just can't do it.
Yeah, I absolutely love Lily, and we're friends and stuff. We've talked in marshalling, and she's absolutely so lovely. And I just love that she is able to do her own thing. Like, she wears Crocs out on the pool deck and wears them out for her finals and stuff. And I just think that's awesome. It's bringing her character into the race, and I guess it makes her feel really at home. Makes her race well as well.
Yeah, well, hopefully you'll be up against her again. Actually, are you going to Pan Pacs this year?
So we have Pan Pac trials coming up in July.
Yeah, okay.
We have to retrial for that, and the Australian team for Pan Pacs will be selected off those trials. So yeah, that's why we're back in training so soon after the Commonwealth Games, because we've got Pan Pacs, and for us, that's our biggest comp of the year. I mean, all of our funding's based off that, and everyone wants to be on that team. Everyone wants to go to Japan, and we love racing America, and it brings such a different challenge to what the Commonwealth Games does, and such a different atmosphere as well. So we're really looking forward to it. I know Australia really loves doing Pan Pacs.
Taylor, going back to the Olympics and all these big races, how do you, the night before, are you able to sleep before the final?
No, I can't, unfortunately. I have terrible sleeps beforehand, especially because you just sit there thinking about it, and when you're lying in bed, you've got no one else to talk to, so the thoughts kind of start coming into your head, and you start thinking about your race, and you think about all the outcomes, good and bad. So it does make it quite difficult to sleep, but I think at a thing like Olympics, you really have to adapt or die, pretty much. I mean, if you can't work out a way to fall asleep and best prepare yourself for the competition, then you're going to fade out. So we were just trying to get as many hours in as we can, even if that means taking like extra long naps in the day. We were doing whatever we can to adjust. And it is quite hard in Olympics being in the village environment with so many sounds going on, especially when the swimming was so late at night. We were napping during the day quite a bit. So it was challenging, but, the good ones find a way.
You know what they need to do is they need to just find somebody with the deepest, most soothing voice to go in your room and just read the most boring book possible. And you'll
do. Oh, it would. And just anything, I think. And even like you can get the apps on your phone now which make like rain sounds and stuff. Yeah. We were so desperate at one point we started putting those on trying to get to sleep, me and my roommate. So yeah, it's funny what we do.
Yeah. So we've gone a little bit out of order here. Normally we like to start at the beginning of your story, but we really just cut right into the Olympics and ready rooms and stuff.
Yeah.
But let's go back to how you found swimming, or how swimming found you, whichever way it worked out, and let's take it back to the beginning.
Well, I guess in Australia, part of our culture is we grow up around the water quite a bit, and I mean it's so hot. We spend a lot of time at the beaches, and we have to do swimming through school programs. So kids around Australia all learn to swim through school. It's part of the curriculum. And I remember I was in grade 3 in primary school, and we were going off to our swim lessons. And I thought I was quite a good swimmer because growing up, my parents had enrolled me in like water safety, learn to swim classes. And then we'd always had a backyard pool at our house. So I was a little bit of a water baby. And I thought, I've got this, like, coming into school swimming. And I didn't get put in the top group, and that made me really upset because all my friends were in the top group at swimming and I wasn't. So that day I went home to Mum and I was like, Mum, I'm not in the top group at swimming. And all my friends were, and by that time some of my friends had started to do squad training, outside of school. And I said, I want to do that. So a year later, I started squad swimming, and I finally got put up into the top group through school swimming. And then, through doing school swimming carnivals and that sort of thing, I noticed I was winning races at school, and I was going to like our district carnival and then on to regionals. And in grade 5, I made my first Queensland schools state championship. So I got to represent the Sunshine Coast region and go off to the Queensland state championships there, which wasn't for club swimming, just for school. And I thought that was awesome. I loved the feeling of walking out behind the blocks, getting up racing. And I guess it kind of kicked off my swimming career because I went back to my coach, and at the time I was training with one of the junior coaches, and she said to me, well, if you want to be better at swimming, you have to start coming to squad training more. So I upped my sessions. I think I was doing maybe 3 or 4 by that time during the week through primary school. And then come into high school, I started expanding my goals to look at things like Australian age group nationals and that kind of thing. And all my friends in the squad were going to Australian nationals, so I really wanted to. And I remember Mum was running me around for months before nationals, trying to get me to all these comps so I could try and qualify. And then in 2014, when I was 14 years old, I qualified. Sorry, in 2009, when I was 14 years old, I qualified. Yes. And I went down to my first Australian Age Nationals, which were in Sydney at the Olympic pool there. And it was huge. I'd never seen so many swimmers, and I was very overwhelmed, but I was really excited to be there, and I thought it was awesome that I'd qualified for an Australian Age Group Nationals. And even though I only qualified for the 100 breaststroke, my family, we packed up the car and we drove down from Queensland to Sydney.
Can I interrupt you?
I didn't even make it out of the heats.
I just want to interrupt you for 1 second. So this was the first time you felt overwhelmed. It was kind of the really big competition.
Yeah, well, it's the first time I'd been on like the Australian national stage, and before that I'd just been doing like local competitions and Queensland comps. And so to head down to Sydney, swimming in the Olympic pool, it was very overwhelming, and I was such a young and experienced swimmer at the time. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't make it out of heats. I finished 17th, and then the next day my family packed up the car again and we're driving back to Queensland. So it was a very short trip. Yeah. But yeah, worthwhile because, once you get a taste of doing it at age nationals, you want to go back and you want to keep improving. And then the following year, when I was 15 years old, I actually ended up winning the 100, the 200, and I got bronze in the 200 medley. So quite a turnaround from not even qualifying for more than one event the year before to winning 2 and medaling in a 3rd. And I just noticed that the year in between, when I upped my training, I started focusing more. I was getting results, like I was PBing in training, and as such a young girl, I thought this was awesome. And I had a few idols that I looked up to, and I remember watching people like Liesl Jones swim at the Commonwealth Games and at Olympics and stuff, and I just really wanted to be like her. I wanted to be there. So that really kept me motivated, and also wanting to continue to win at Australian Age Nationals kept me going. And then, yeah, I think 2011 I qualified for my first Australian Open Nationals, which, is another level again. And 2012 Olympic year come around, and I qualified for the 200 breaststroke final at the Australian Open Nationals, and I ended up missing the qualifying time for the Olympics by 0.01 as a year 12 student, as a 17-year-old. So it was a good and a bad mix, I guess, because I was so stoked that I'd managed to medal at my first Australian Open Championship, but at the same time I didn't realise how close I was to making the Olympic team. Mm-hmm. And when we finished year 12, they got the students to make a tile that kind of represents them and something they can leave at the school for like everlasting legacy. So on my tile, I drew the Olympic rings because for me as a person in year 12, when I missed that Olympic team, that was all I was focused on. And that's all I really wanted when I finished high school, was to put all my time and effort into swimming and be there for the next Olympics. So I guess it's really cool now that I can go back and look at that wall and think, wow, I set that goal 4 years prior, and then 4 years later I was up there at the Rio Olympics after qualifying. So that's a really awesome feeling. And then, fill in the gaps the years in between. I had Commonwealth Games, World Championships, and really built up some experience before that Olympics. So looking back, I think it all turned out pretty well.
Yeah, it's amazing story. Actually, Taylor, when did you realize you were a breaststroker? Did that come naturally?
Oh, I actually thought I was going to be a backstroker because through school I used to hate doing breaststroke, and I used to love swimming on my back, and I would go to like the local swim carnivals and I would always win the backstroke and, maybe second or third here and there in the breaststroke and the freestyle. And then, I don't know, I started racing medleys as well, and I noticed that in the breaststroke leg I was being quite strong and overtaking the other girls I was racing. And then through training, working my medleys, the breaststroke leg kind of developed to be stronger and stronger until I thought, well, hang on, I can try and qualify here in the breaststroke. So yeah, I started training a mix of breaststroke and medley. And yeah, here we are. Now I'm terrible at backstroke.
Well, at least you don't have to race your sister then.
Oh my goodness, I am so thankful me and Kaylee don't have to race each other. Yep. She absolutely smashes me in training every time we do backstroke, and I hate it.
Well, I think about like the Campbell sisters and how they specialize in the same events. That
must be tough.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
No, and you always have that
kind
of sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They handle it extremely well.
Yeah. Well, getting back to you, I'm going to make a prediction here because I've noticed a pattern in some of the stories you've been telling. So you all your stories begin with a result that you're not happy with, and then coming back the next year or the next cycle and just killing it. So you have, not making the squad, and then the next year all of a sudden doing well. And then you've got your first nationals where you didn't go out of heats, and then the next one where you're medaling again, and then you have.
Yeah.
Well, I think your Olympic result was great, but you're saying the final wasn't the result that you wanted. So I'm calling it now. I'm calling. I'm calling out. That's my prediction.
It's so funny because my coach says the same thing, and we use bad races as motivation in training. And like I said before, if I'm hurting really bad and I'm just not producing the times that should be expected in that particular session, he'll say something to me like, "Oh, do you want to swim as bad as you did in the 200 breaststroke final at the Olympics?" And I'm like, "No way, man." Well, so it does motivate me a lot, and it is a bitter taste finishing an Olympic final knowing you had so much more in you, especially given my semi-final result. And it's definitely a motivator for sure.
Yeah. Well, I wrote down, I was going through like some of your social media feeds, and I noticed your favorite quote was, "What would the best in the world do in this situation?" So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's.
Yeah, I live by that. So.
Yeah. It sounds more like it's your rage that drives you, but it's still a good quote.
Yeah. I would say I do my best training sessions when I'm a little bit angry or frustrated by something. And I remember I was in Japan training and I got to do a session with Kaneko Watanabe, who is a 220 swimmer. And at the time, I was so angry. I didn't want her to beat me. And I PB'd this whole session.
Yeah.
It was like 2050 max or something. And I ended up, because I was racing her, I PB'd the entire session. And my coach was like, "Whoa, we need to get more breaststrokers into train more often." And I was like, "Yeah, please."
And do you ever have to... do you ever have to showcase after, like make a show of like not breathing hard after a set so they think that it didn't hurt you that bad, or is it... It's
actually funny because sometimes I do that in my heat swim. Heats hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Heats hurt way more than finals, and sometimes I'll like finish a heat swim at World Championships or something and I'll be in my lane breathing really lightly so that the heat who's swimming next don't think that I've tried hard.
Yeah.
And so that the girls in the race don't think I've tried hard, but secretly on the inside I'm probably dying.
Yeah, it reminded me of, you might be too young to remember this, but do you remember a 200 breaststroker by the name of Mike Barrowman?
No, sorry.
So he won the Olympic gold in the 200 breaststroke in the 1992 Olympics. And and that's what he used to do in the heats. He would like, he wouldn't break world records in heats, but he would do killer times in the heats. And then he would just lay back in the lane line and do whatever it took to just take shallow breaths and look like it didn't hurt him at all.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It was yeah.
I think sometimes you can convince yourself that you're feeling good as well, and convince yourself that it didn't hurt, and convince yourself that you've got more to give in the final. So
yeah, well, he confessed later that it killed him, but
yeah, well, there you go.
So before we move on, I want to ask if you had to kind of name the, like, obviously you can't name yourself, but kind of we call it the Mount Rushmore of 200 breaststrokers. But since the 200 breaststroke is your best event, who are your icons, like the people that you think that like you would like to emulate or surpass?
Well, as a kid, I really looked up to Liesl just because she was so dominant when I was growing up and looking up to people like that. And from such a young age too, she made her first Olympic team when she was 14 and had such a long career. And I thought that was very inspiring. But now that I'm here and I'm actually chasing people down who I'm competing against, I look to breaststrokers like Rike Pedersen, the world record holder, and I think, what's she doing that I'm not? What am I missing? So people like that, they keep me really driven because not only do I want to be like them, but I also want to beat them. And I think she is awesome. I mean, she's never not being an athlete. She seems to take everything very seriously, and her life outside of the pool as well is incredibly dedicated. So I think she does really emulate the perfect athlete and the perfect 200 breaststroker. And if you look at her technique from when she was really on form a couple of years ago, she just looks so easy in the water. And I really love watching breaststroke when it looks easy because it just looks like the athlete has so much glide, and it's just really beautiful to see. And there's a few males as well. I remember like Daniel Gerda and Marco Kosch from Germany. They're also very easy looking breaststrokers, and I just think the technique's beautiful, and you look at their kick and, everything's just so on point. So those athletes, you kind of look at it and you just think, wow, how can I be like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything, Rory, before we move on?
No,
Yeah?
I'm just listening. It's amazing to listen to you. With your race strategies, Taylor, do you have a specific, for each leg, do you have a specific stroke count and everything that you're trying to do?
Yeah, I actually count my strokes when I'm racing as well, so that after the race I can go back to my coach and we can talk about that and see how things went from my point of view rather than what the coach always thinks. But I love to, it's kind of chopped and changed over the years as I've developed new skills in the race, and it's just recently, I think from December last year, I really have gone into a negative split focus, so working my first 100 quite easy and then trying to come hard, which in the past, I've been the total opposite. I've taken out the 100 quite strong and then managed to hold on in the second 100. And I just found that negative splitting was a much, I guess, more professional and easier and more enjoyable way to race as well. So I don't know. It'll be interesting come Pan Pac trials to see what happens. But I've talked to with my coach, and the dream split would be 109, 111 to hit that 220. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you talk about where can I chip off half a second, where can I chip off this, and you start looking at turns and dives and that sort of thing. So, we are chipping away at it and we have a goal in mind. I would absolutely love to go 220, and being at 21 is very close.
You're very
close.
But
it's just not quite a 20. Not quite. So I'm going to keep working away at it.
Yeah. And do you put the same kind of emphasis on your, the 200 is clearly your best event, but do you put the same kind of emphasis or drive on the 100 as well? Or does the 100 just kind of fall into place where it does?
I think my main race strategy for the 100 is because I don't have enough front end speed to be able to take it out like the other sprinters do. So I rely on the sprinters dying in the last 15 meters for me to make my move. So I kind of back off a little bit in the first 50 of the 100, and I'm usually out around a 32 low, 31 high, whereas, people around me are out in 31 lows and sometimes even 30 point. And if you look at Lily, she's out at 29. So, but I tend to come back in around that 34, sometimes 35 low. So I'm definitely a back end swimmer in the 100. And I think that's why Chris decided that he wanted to try and recreate that for the 200 as well. And he said, well, it's been working for you in the 100. You've been able to consistently go 106 mids when you're doing that race strategy. So let's see what it can produce in the 200. And I put up a pretty good swim at our Queensland State Championships in December last year. With that race focus, I went like a 23, which was quite good for, end of season, not really tapered or anything like that. And that's why we decided to try and make that the focus for this year.
And so, Taylor, what kind of, do you use any technologies or anything like that, like tempo trainers or anything to try and help you with that back end while you're doing your training?
Yeah, so I do use a tempo trainer from time to time. My coach's favorite session that we do is 2050s, and they're all at best maximum effort. So whatever you can hold for all 2050s, you just absolutely go guts out. And the last time we did it, I wore a tempo trainer because he didn't want my stroke rate to be over 37. So I had the tempo trainer on 37. I had to make sure that my strokes were either slower and longer than it or at the same time. And having that focus of thinking about your stroke rate and your stroke count actually was producing really good times. I was managing to hold, 33s to 34s during that session. So
awesome.
It just goes to show that when you think about your technique and you really slow things down and you take things away from a time focus, that you tend to get the best results. So yeah, we love using tempo trainers. We get the cameras in maybe once every 2 to 3 weeks, and we look at turns and starts and that sort of thing, just as a refresher to make sure that we haven't lost any skills and to help us gain skills to the future as well. And we recently just got a flume, so we're looking forward to getting in and testing that out too.
Have you ever swam in one before?
I have, but it's been a while. It's probably been about 8 months.
Yeah.
And usually we have to travel down to Brisbane for it. So from the Sunshine Coast, it's about an hour and 45-minute drive to the closest flume.
Yeah.
But now we have one at our pool. It's awesome. I can't wait to use it.
They're amazing. I remember swimming in one, this must have been about 20 years ago, but it was, I remember them recording the stroke underwater and we just didn't have the same technology, but I remember watching my stroke and I was like, what? I have a 4-beat kick? I had no idea. Yeah.
It's so funny. And it's great when they have mirrors in them as well, because you're getting feedback straight away. And I could tell the last time I used one when I was looking in the mirror under me that my breaststroke pull was very uneven. And I think I put a photo of it on my Instagram. One of my arms like pulls wider than the other, so that's kind of annoying. So I really wanted to fix that.
Wow, amazing. So, I also wanted to touch on, would you, I might be off here, but like looking through your records here, would you say that 2014 was kind of your real breakout year, or am I off on that?
Yeah, I think 2014 was, internationally. The year previous, I went to, is it Irvine in California?
Yeah.
And I did the US Open there. And I won the Turner breaststroke at the US Open with like a 23 or a 24.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me a little taste like, oh, that's my first kind of big open international comp, and I did really well. So come Commonwealth Games the following year, I think I was ready, and it just all kind of fell into place. And then as a rookie on the Australian team, you're not really expected to swim well. Everyone just kind of, you know, they get you excited before you race, and they're there to support you. But no one says, oh, well, we're expecting you to win this. They just want you to go there and learn and have fun. And I think I surprised myself and I surprised everyone else when I came out of that Turner breaststroke with a win.
Well, you answered my question before I could ask it.
As well, so, yeah. So, it was definitely my breakout year, and I've consistently made the Australian team every year since then. So, it was a great way to kickstart.
And with great results. I mean, you've basically picked up at least one international medal every year, right?
Yeah, whether that be through an individual or a relay swim, I don't know, somehow it just falls into place. So fingers crossed for Pan Packs, hey?
Yeah. I got to keep that string alive. So now that now that you've been on all these different teams, so you know, 2 Commonwealth Games, couple of Worlds, Olympics, hopefully your second Pan Packs coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been asking what's everybody's favorite team, but the default is always the Olympics. So I'm going to change it up a little bit and say, what was kind of the most fun team? Like the
most fun?
Yeah.
Definitely this year's Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
Out of all the ones I've been on so far, and I think that was probably because it was at home, so we knew the area really well, and when we finished racing, we just went out and watched as many sports as we could. Everything was really close, so we saved a lot of time. Less time traveling means more time either partying when we're finished or watching other sports. So we really enjoyed swimming in front of a home crowd. The Australians were absolutely wild and really lifted us to the point where sometimes they had to like get the swimmers down off the blocks because the crowd just kept doing the Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi cheer until they were like, okay, that's enough, guys. So, just swimming in front of the home crowd like that is something I've never experienced before. And, you felt absolutely lifted when you went to race. And so the racing was fun, but then also the second week when we were done and everyone was celebrating, and the Australians everywhere would see you in the street and just give you a big high five, be really supportive. So that just kind of brought it all together and made it the most fun.
Well, I think everybody likes having it in Australia because I've noticed on people's like their Instagram feeds and Instagram stories, there's people that are still there touring around. So
yeah, I know. How funny is that? They're either here or in New Zealand.
Yeah. And can you tell us about some of the? Can you touch on maybe some of the people that have really impressed you on the most recent Commonwealth Games, whether it's from other countries or on your team? Like I'm interested in hearing your perspective on other athletes as well.
Yeah, well, I have always said to anyone who asks me this that my favourite swim of the Commonwealth Games was Clyde Lewis, our young Australian boy in the 400 medley, because he finished the race, and I don't know if you guys saw his post-race interview, but he was absolutely smashed. Physically, he gave everything that he could to that race. He had an awesome result. He PB'd by like 2 or 3 seconds or something like that, which was phenomenal, and he gets out and he can barely walk. So he's got one of the officials to kind of carry him over to our Australia Channel 7 interview area. And then they're sticking the microphone in his face, and Clyde's kind of hunched over on the rails, trying to hold himself up, get some deep breaths in. And then the interviewer was like, so how is that, Clyde? And he just goes, yeah. He was physically that dead that he couldn't even put words together to do the interview. So they brought him over a chair and he sat down for the rest of the interview, and then they actually had to go to the next race and then come back to him later when he could kind of gather himself a little bit more. And I just thought that effort, that physical output was just so inspiring. And I've never seen anybody give a race that much before. And I just thought, wow, like, good on you, Clyde. You know, he put it all out there on the line and had nothing to lose, but absolutely smashed it. And I just thought that was my favorite swim. And, you know, we had Ariane Titmus as well take out the 400 and the 800 freestyle and medal in the relay, and also the 200 freestyle as well. So to have such a dominant freestyle swimmer coming through, it's awesome to see. So yeah, it's really exciting seeing that Australia's got a really good future in swimming, and then that we're also smashing it at the moment as well.
Yeah, I love seeing those stories or hearing those stories where the people, they just give it their all. You actually reminded me again. This would have been before you were even born. In the 1994 Commonwealth Games, there was a Canadian swimmer in the 400 individual medley. His name was Curtis Myden, and he pushed himself so hard, and he didn't win. I think he got a silver behind Australia, and that he fainted before they got on the podium. Where the Australian national anthem was going to start. So he came to, and he insisted that like as a sportsman, that he'd be on that podium anyway, to even though it wasn't his national anthem. It was an amazing story, and I love hearing those stories. And damn it, those reporters forcing him in that interview. That it's just not right.
No, it was good. So he went up and he did the whole medal presentation thing, and then after he did his lap of honor around the pool, he was actually able to talk, and he said, like, I just really enjoyed that race. I gave it my all, and I PB'd, so I'm stoked. And I was like, good on you, Clyde. Like, you can't ask for much more than to PB a race knowing you've given it your all too. So it really paid off for him. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. And I know we're taking up a lot of your time here, but I wanted to touch on some of your interests outside of swimming, if you still have some time.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring up an interest, and then you can go into any tangent you want. But are you still part of the Dolphin Project?
So I still support Dolphin Project. Like, I regularly donate to them because I just think the work they're doing is so valuable. And then after Olympics in 2016, I was given about 8 to 9 weeks off swimming.
Yep.
And I didn't want to stay in Australia and be counterproductive. I wanted to get out there and do something that was going to be fulfilling. So I kicked it off with an amazing holiday. I left Australia with my best friend, and I went to watch my sister in the Junior Pen Packs in Hawaii. So I think I finished Rio. I came home, and I had 24 hours before I was on a flight back out of Australia to go to Hawaii. So I watched Kaylee swim, and then we continued on a holiday there afterwards. And then I went to Las Vegas, New York, back to Australia. And then I went to Japan, and that was with Dolphin Project. I just didn't want to go freelance because I was so inexperienced. I wasn't sure what I was in for. And I'd always loved Rico Barry, and I love what he stands for. And I just thought I would hit up Dolphin Project and see if I could kind of tag along with their crew that was over there. And they really welcomed me with open arms. So I went over there with Dolphin Project. I shared their car and wore their T-shirts, all that sort of stuff. And I helped out with their filming and a bit of commentary on what was going on when I was over there. And I'm so glad I did it because, you watch all these wildlife documentaries about all of the disgusting things that are happening to animals in the world. But I think until you really experience it firsthand, it doesn't affect you as strong. And I've kind of promised myself now that I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to this cause until it sees an end. And whether that be with Dolphin Project or by myself or with someone else, I'm going to do what I can. I was just lucky enough to be with such an amazing team in 2016 as Dolphin Project, and I will definitely continue to support them. Yeah, and I think they have me listed as an ambassador on their website along with some other amazing people like Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones, and Harry Styles actually got up in one of his One Direction concerts and said some things about dolphins in captivity. I just thought that's so awesome. I mean, it's kicking along, and it's just creating this snowball effect of celebrities and I guess big name people who are speaking their opinions on these issues, and then the public's kind of picking up on it and then jumping on board and supporting that cause as well. So, fingers crossed in the not so near future that the animal cruelty cases are on a decline.
Yeah. It first came to my attention. Well, I mean, you always hear stuff about it with seals and everything, but there was that documentary Blackfish, which was about orca whales.
Oh yes, I actually watched that again just last week, probably for like the 10th time.
Oh really? Yeah. It was
Yeah, and I mean, that's an amazing case of how people don't really realize what captivity can do to animals, and then to see it in a documentary so black and white in your face really woke people up a little bit. And I've been kind of following a few groups on Instagram and across other social media who are continuing to report on it, and SeaWorld's annual income has consistently been on the decline since the release of that documentary. And it just means that people, saying no to the dolphin show, and they can see the cruelty behind it. And now they've vowed to stop breeding killer whales in captivity. So once this lot passed away, then that, fingers crossed, that'll be it.
Yeah, I hope so.
So yeah, it's a big movement which has really gained momentum, and to the point now where people are starting to do things about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we could provide a small platform for you to talk about your passion for it. And I'm sorry to bring the mood down a little bit, but is there anything else?
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
I think it's important for athletes to have a passion outside of swimming. Otherwise, your life just gets so consumed by swimming. And I decided that once I'd made a name for myself, in Australia, and given myself that platform, that I was going to use it for as a good cause and do what I can to help animals. I mean, I'm a big believer in giving a voice to those who don't have a voice. And, whenever I can, I make regular donations to a few certain charities. And I just feel like part of life is giving back as well. So, I've decided to study animal ecology at uni as well, just to further expand my knowledge on that field as well. So, I really want to dedicate my life outside of swimming to doing the best I can to make change, I guess.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Taylor. How's, is it Leroy?
Leroy, my Kelpie, yeah.
How's he doing?
He's here right now. So, I have a few rescue animals around my house, which is probably not a big surprise to most people. So, Leroy's one of them. I picked him up from a shelter down in Brisbane. And then I've got 2 cats rescued as well. And I've got a few birds outside in this big aviary, which it started as 2, and they've now expanded into 6. So
nice.
I've got a little family out there growing as well. And I just find fulfillment in surrounding myself with animals that I feel like I've helped in some way. And even at my parents' house, we always had rescue animals growing up. My dad used to bring home kittens from the sawmill that he was working at. If they were injured or stray, and we would help them out and give them somewhere to live. So I think most of my passion comes from my mum's side of the family. Growing up, she always taught me to treat animals with respect. And, if we were walking along the beach and we saw a piece of plastic, we would take it with us and take it home and do the right thing and put it in the bin. And I just thought that was really inspiring, seeing how much my mum cared. And that really shows through me and Kaylee as well. I mean, Kaylee's just about to finish year 12, and she's looking at doing nursing or speech pathology or something like that, because she really wants to give back to people who, I guess, struggle through life with certain things. And she's so caring as well. And I guess in a way we've both gone our different directions. I mean, I'm caring towards animals, and Kaylee's really caring towards people who are disadvantaged. So, I think we both have really great souls, and I guess it's because of my family and the way we were brought up as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a really, really great family. That's fantastic and very admirable.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we're going to, we've taken up almost an hour of your time here, so we're going to wrap this up. And there you have it, swim fans. That brings us to the end of our first official episode of the Swim Guys podcast. Rory and I certainly hope that you have enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed speaking to Taylor and presenting it to you. So there you go. Please download, rate, review, subscribe, whatever you need to do. I do want to add that unfortunately, since the time of this interview, Taylor and her family found out that her father was diagnosed with a glioblastoma tumor of the brain. This, unfortunately, is one of the most aggressive types of cancer around, and the treatments for which can be quite costly. Taylor and her family have set up a GoFundMe account to try and raise some funds just to help them with the ongoing financial cost of the treatment as they try to continue and cope with the grief and the healing that goes on with these types of treatments. Rory and I have donated a little bit, and we certainly hope that you are also willing. So please go to the swimguys.com website, look at the show notes, and along with her Achiever Swim Academy, we have linked
Taylor McKeown's GoFundMe account for her dad's cancer treatment. And we wish him a speedy recovery. Please share and donate what you can. Every little bit helps. That's all, folks.